With the 20th CPC National Congress underway in the Chinese capital, Dr. Emmanuel Matambo, a political analyst at the University of Johannesburg, shares with us his thoughts on the report delivered by Xi Jinping on behalf of the 19th CPC Central Committee.
China had spelled out its goals, which is one thing that is quite admirable. The 2020, 2020, 2035 goal, for example, of modernizing China is something that we can learn from. And of course, afterwards, China plans to have from 2035 to 2050, China wants to have a great and prosperous socialist country that is characterized by cultural diversity, cultural harmony, beauty, and democracy as well. And the president referred to that. He also made mention of the three main goals that China has attained under his leadership. The first goal that China attained was that it celebrated the centenary existence of the Communist Party of China. The second goal was obviously the entrenchment of of socialism with Chinese characteristics. The third goal was what happened in November 2020 when China eradicated absolute poverty. There is a lot that the African continent, not only Africa, by the way, but the developing world itself, even some countries in South and East Asia, can learn from China's experience. First of all, is the fact of using human capital. If there's one gift that Deng Xiaoping had for China was pragmatism and realizing that China's strength lay in the numbers of people that it had. And it made use of that human capital. Africa today is the youngest continent in the world. Only about 3% of Africans are above the age of 65. So that gives us a strategic advantage in terms of human capital. So making sure that you skill the human capital, send the human capital to work is one of the things that Africa can learn from China. Another thing that Africa can learn from China is the wherewithal and the drive to implement whatever it is that those who are in power decide upon. China decided that it was going to open its economy, and it went towards that. It opened its economy, and today it is reaping the rewards of that. Another thing that Africa can learn from China is having foresight as well and long-term planning, because Africa, most of the times, we are constrained by the fact that, well, our leaders are only in power by the average of about 5 years, for example. So most of the times we tend not to think beyond that election cycle. China knows how to adapt. For example, today, China is a relatively prosperous country, and it has realized that it can no longer cling on to its past of being the manufacturing capital of the world. For example, it is now going into the service industry. One of the biggest impediments to Africa's development is infrastructure deficit. And because of that, China has been a godsend, if I may use that particular term there, through the Belt and Road Initiative. And not only that, through also multinational corporations that are involved in a variety of infrastructural projects on the African continent. Statistics from the African Development Bank say that on an average, Africa lacks about $100 billion worth of infrastructure. And without infrastructure, there is no way that Africa can develop. The second thing, obviously, which is also tied to infrastructure deficit, is African integration and intra-African trade. And with the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area, the implementation of Agenda 23 as well, China has been the main cog in helping Africa to make sure that the continent integrates, and infrastructure has been key to that as well. And of course, the fact that every year at the beginning, the Minister of Foreign Affairs in China just visits Africa as his first foreign destination, just shows the importance that Africa enjoys in China's foreign policy. So yes, there is ideological importance to this relationship, and there is also pragmatic importance in the form of infrastructure and foreign direct investment that emanates from China.